Hi everyone, I'm Sandy, and today I'm back with my 1001 book countdown, and I'm very excited because I have a 5-star read for you, and I'm finally in the single digits for 2021. I'm hugely excited, so let's get to All right. So as always, if you're not familiar with the 1001 Book Countdown, I'll put a card up here for you where you can go check out the original video and all the details. But basically, it's book reviews off of the 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list. And I'm just working my way through it and documenting my journey on BookTube. And I'm having an absolute blast. And today is amazing because not only do I have a 5-star, I have a 4-star and then a 3-star, and I have 3 books for you this week. Amazing. I didn't read all of these books in one week. One of the books I read over the course of October. One it took me over a couple of weeks, and one is one I actually did read just this last week. So I don't want you to think I read 3 books this week because that is not the case. But for today, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put up my numbers, which are 962 and 10, which is the 2021 number. And we're going to jump right into the books. What's odd about the 3 books I have for you is they were all set in different wars. I don't know how that happened or why these 3 books ended up together, but what a great pairing, or I don't know, what would you call 3 books? It's not a pairing, but a great group for you, I guess, of books. And so I'm just going to kind of do them in, I think, the reverse order of the actual event or the actual war, rather than maybe the order that I read them or the order of the rating. And so the first book that I have is the one that's set in the Vietnam War, and that is The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. This book was published in 1990 and is around in the middle of O'Brien's works. And this was supposed to be a buddy read with my husband, and he abandoned it after a couple of chapters. And I do understand why he abandoned it, and it's because the first couple of chapters are very literally about the things they carried. This person carried a picture, this person carried bubble gum, kind of thing. And there is like a shocking event that happens really early, but it's said almost in passing. And the real meat of it doesn't start until a little bit later in the book. So the first thing I would tell anyone who is wanting to read The Things They Carried, get past the first few chapters. If you get to the section, if you've read this book with the baby buffalo, that is really where the book just turned a massive corner for me, and I had trouble putting it down at that point. It really is a book that is going through a horrible time, and it is told from a couple of different perspectives, all kind of Tim O'Brien's perspective, though. As one of the things that when you're reading this, sometimes it feels like it's Tim O'Brien who is actually telling you part of his story. Part of it feels like he's watching a story, and part of it is him in the future reflecting on that time. And so one of the things I wasn't sure about is this truly all fiction? Is it nonfiction? Is it autofiction? And the author has an absolutely amazing point in this book about that, which is the difference between story truth and happening truth. And the story truth being, let me do happening truth first. Happening being what actually happened in that time to a very scared 20-year-old in Vietnam, away from home, terrified, not able to even necessarily look up. Or the story truth, which is actually what was felt, how he experienced things, and whether or not the story truth was actually more real than the happening truth. And I really appreciated that quite a bit. It made me really think back to Resistance by Julian Fuchs, and wanting to go and reread that now with that same perspective, because I found that fascinating with this particular book. This book, going through the story of Tim, if it is Tim O'Brien, is absolutely gut-wrenching. There are scenes in this that you are just reading going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen here? What happened? How are they going to get out of this? It is brutal and dark and twisted in places, and the things that they do to try and make themselves feel somewhat normal are very shocking sometimes. And so, but the book itself is absolutely magnificent. You do, like I said, get past the first couple of chapters, because that's not where the beauty in this book really begins. I said about chapter 3 or 4 is where I just really got pulled in, but it is a story of experiences in a very difficult, traumatic war, and documents some of the injuries he had, and and then kind of reflects back at a later point of as an adult, or as, I'm not sure how much farther, but with like his daughter, went back and really looked at kind of some of the same areas. And so highly, highly recommend this book. Was it my 5-star? Nope. This is actually closer to the 4-star mark. And I don't know if it's because reading it with my husband really made me give it a lower grade, knowing that he DNF'd it after a couple of chapters. But it is one that if you can handle the war stories and you can handle the violence, it is an absolutely fascinating, fascinating story. But lots of blood, lots of gore, lots of disturbing things in this book. But with that, we go from 962 to 961, which marks that the 40th book off the list. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And it is on my 2021 list. So I go from 10 to 9. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I'm not done. I know I'm acting like a complete and total goofball. All right. The next book was a group read with Shelley Swearingen and a couple of subscribers. And this book is set in World War II time frame, so we're going backwards in time, and is set in Canada. And the book is, you can't see it very well from this, The Tin Flute by Gabrielle Roy. I wasn't sure, there was some conversation in our group whether it was Gabrielle Yee, it's spelled R-O-Y. And this book was actually recommended to us by Elizabeth over at Bookins and Books. So I will leave her channel and Shelley's channel linked in the description below if you want to go and check them out. But this book, oh my goodness, I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this book. This book was published in 1945. I did find a picture of the author, which I'll put up on this screen, which is so classic looking 1945 in my head. That's what I would picture. This, from what I can tell, was her debut novel and that is absolutely, absolutely amazing. This book follows a family in Canada who is living in abject poverty and are barely surviving. They have a father who is kind of a never-do-well, doesn't necessarily do anything malicious or mean, just can't hold down a job. And oftentimes it's through his own actions, like stealing a truck when he wasn't, or borrowing a truck without permission and getting fired, and just not able, having kind of a lackadaisical attitude about work. Meanwhile, the mother, who has had 11 children, we weren't clear on if all of the children were still alive or not throughout parts of the book. Sorry, minor interruption. So the mother, like I said, who has had 11 children, not sure if all of them are alive or not, or are still alive, and is unfortunately pregnant with her 12th. And she is just trying to keep everybody clothed and fed and a home, roof over their heads. And she's probably one of the more sympathetic characters in this particular book. It also follows a daughter, the oldest daughter, whose name is Florentine. And Florentine has some real challenges in just how she is approaching love and her relationships. And she makes decisions that are not in her best interest, without a doubt, that come back and have some pretty significant consequences for her. But the book is really about their relationship between the mother and the daughter and the husband, and just them trying to survive in this very, very difficult time. And it seems like the poor family can never catch a break. I read this just at times being so angry at the characters and for the decisions that they were making, sad for the characters at times, for things that were happening. Just there's one section in this that almost brought me to tears. There was a lot of just, I was upset at the characters, which I think is absolutely amazing about the writing in this book, because regardless of whether or not you like the book, Gabrielle Roy, Gabrielle Yee, sorry, really makes you feel something for the characters, feel something for what's going on, and root for them and hope it's different, and just be devastated if it's not. You can, whether or not you agree with the decisions the characters were making, the book makes you feel something, or made me feel something anyway. I could not put this book down once I got to a certain point, and it is absolutely my 5-star read. I loved this book. Our group read, we had an interesting, a lot of conversation about the ending and whether or not we all felt, how we all felt about the ending. And again, I think it was a tribute to the author in that not so much the decision that was made, but kind of how it was made, and that it brought a lot of conversation, not about whether or not we liked or disliked the ending, but liked or disliked the decision that the person made in the story. And so absolutely brilliant writing, absolutely beautiful story. It is one that made me cry or almost cry at parts. And I towards the end, I just couldn't put the book down. So the Tin Flute is a high recommend. I don't know if you've watched my channel for very long, I don't give out a lot of 5 stars. It's very hard for me for whatever reason just to say, yep, it's a 5-star. I think I've only given maybe 2 this year, and none recently. So that I'm giving it a 5-star is a pretty big endorsement. So thank you so much to Elizabeth at Bookends and Books for recommending this book, and Shelley Swearingen for pulling me into the group read, which is how a lot of the group reads happen. But the Tin Flute is going to be book 9, goes from 961 to 960, but it wasn't on my 2021 list, so that number will stay at 9. But I do have a third book, and the third book is Under Fire by Henri Barbusse, I think is how you say his last name. This book was actually published in 1916 and is set in World War I. This is unfortunately the least favorite or the least effective of all the books for me, and primarily because the first, and I read this as I checked it out at the library as an ebook, and so I had to give it back already. I can't even hold up my iPad and show you the cover. I will put obviously a book cover here for you. Hopefully it's already there. But this particular book, for the first half of it, you're waiting to go back to what they call the trenches, which sound, by the way, horrific, and you are going back, away from the front and seeing all the people who are doing clerical work, and you have to go back to this very horrible environment. About 60% of the way through, you get brought into the combat, and it is very, very trying in that, and the description of the trenches and what they're going through to kind of get to where the enemy is at sounds absolutely just devastating. And that part of the book is where it really started to pick up, but it took 60% of the book to kind of get to that part, and then once they get away from that, kind of goes back into the same thing again of it not being like this really intriguing story. And I don't know if I read it, since I read it so close to the things they carried, whether or not I was impacted by the things they carried and how moving that book was, and it kind of brought this one down a little bit. Like if I read it outside of that, would I have felt differently about it? I'm not sure if that's true or not, but the parts that were set with combat and the war parts were the part that leaves you on the edge of your seat, just flipping pages, trying to find out what happens. It also has kind of a nameless narrator, which I thought was really an interesting aspect of it. You never really learn his name. But the story itself was not my favorite. It's the one I gave 3 stars to out of the group, but it does take me from 960 to 959. Did I do that right? I hope I did that right. 960 to 959, and it is on my 2021 list. So I get to go from 9 to 8. And that is the end of the update for this week. I am, as you can see from my face, so incredibly thrilled with the reading that I get to share with you. As I said, I didn't read all of these this week. They were reads from the month of October that happened to line up for the video this week. But it has been an absolutely amazing couple of weeks of reading with the things they carried and the Tin Flute. But with that is the end of my update. I am still plugging away at Bleak House. I do have it. As you can see here, I'm over halfway through Bleak House, but I'm nowhere near where I wanted to be. And I have to unfortunately go out of town unexpectedly this weekend, so I might do some ebook listening on my drive, but I'm hoping to get this done for next week. And beyond that, I haven't started another book for the 1001 book countdown, so I don't know. I did start Project Hail Mary for New Worlds November, and I'm having trouble putting that book down because it is fascinating to me, and there's a ton of science in it, which makes me really want to read The Code Breaker, which is in my November TBR video. And because that's about gene editing, and there's so many experiments and everything in there, I almost just want to continue and read The Code Breaker next. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Project Hail Mary is going very, very well. I've read 30% of the book from last night to today. Oh boy. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if you've read any of those books or if you're going to pick one up. I would love to hear about that as well. And as always, until next time, everyone, thanks, bye.